For a nation, history is made. Two big cats play to a stalemate. A regional rivalry has some pretty iconic moments, and a pair of eagles soar high and also punch their ticket into the last 16 as group winners. It was another eventful day at the Africa Cup of Nations, and well, we know what we're here for, to break it all down. Hi, I'm the Football Otaku, and welcome to episode 3 of Total AFCON Daily, your daily roundup and wrap of all things Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. If you guys are liking the content, don't forget to like, to share, and subscribe. And enough talking, enough pre-game. Let's get this show on the road, starting with today's action would kick off in the nation's capital, Rabat, as Benin would take on Botswana. With both teams being beaten on opening day, victory was utterly important, as victory would give you a great chance of qualifying for the last 16, while defeat could almost certainly see you out of the competition if certain things happened. So the match was pretty tense at first, but Benin started imposing themselves, and Benin definitely looked a lot more improved than they did on opening day. It doesn't help that they played a resurgent DR Congo, but they looked a lot more on the ball at times, but also didn't really look threatening as well. Botswana as well created a lot of opportunities, also came pretty close and were pretty enterprising. It was a pretty even game between two teams of very even quality. But Benin would show better quality for a moment and for a very important moment. A ball played into the area, and Roach got the ball. He dribbles it into the box. He takes a shot. The shot takes a very wild deflection, which throws off the Botswanan goalkeeper and flies into the back of the net to give the Cheetahs a 1-0 lead. A massive goal. And now they were staring into the cusp of history. Never before had Benin won a match at the Cup of Nations tournament at 15 matches in the competition itself. Well, 1-1 in normal time in open play. I mean, they did reach the quarterfinals in 2019, famously beat Morocco on penalties, but penalties technically count as draws. But again, we're not here to discuss the rulebook, we're here to talk about the game. Botswana reacted pretty well to going 1-0 down. They created some numerous opportunities. There was a ball put into the area, which the Beninois goalkeeper had to make a very good save from a header, and they even hit the post from a free kick, which really rattled the Beninois goal. Heading into the second half, though, you could tell Benin was sort of trying to see the game out. Gernot Roseman were trying to see the game out, trying to close as much distance between themselves and Botswana as possible, and they were able to sort of see the game out. Not much happened afterwards. There were the odd opportunities, but Botswana never really had enough, and the full-time whistle would go off, and Benin would win 1-0, and they would secure a first ever landmark victory in the Africa Cup of Nations. And it's an important victory too, because it gives them a very good chance of progressing even as a wild card into the last 16. It's a huge result for the country, it's a huge result for the team, and I'm sure a moment that a lot of Cheetahs fans, both in Morocco and back home, are never going to forget. And simultaneously, as results later in the day, the Total Africa Cup of Nations of 2025 would claim its first victim, as this result, coupled with other results I'll talk about later, would confirm that Botswana would be on the plane home. The Zebras are out. It was the game that a lot of us were looking forward to. This was the game of the round in this group, as Senegal took on DRC. Both of them winners in the opening game. Many would have expected Senegal again to flex their muscles, but they were up against a DR Congo team that had definitely been up in upsurging form. You could definitely feel the positive vibe and the positive energy, and you could definitely feel it as well. Senegal, it was a very box-to-box game, a game that was very, very open. Senegal did obviously create a lot of good chances, but Nicholas Jackson shows his Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, he's really, really good at times of putting chances away. We saw that against Botswana, but there are times where he just doesn't do a good enough job and doesn't put chances away. And we saw that again against DRC today, where he doesn't put away a lot of good chances. Him and Sadio, he's being fed as well by Sadio Mane, but he's not doing a good enough job. Also, they may not have as many chances, but also DRC showed that they could be very, very dangerous. Even had the ball in the back of the net at some point, but that would be ruled out for offside. But that would be a warning, a massive warning, heading into the break at halftime. And it's a warning that Pape Thiaw's men didn't listen to, as finally DRC would be putting decent play together and would actually get the game's opening goal, much to everyone's surprise. A ball played into the right would find Theo Bongdongda, sorry for my pronunciation. He would play out neat 1-2 and would take a shot which Edouard Mendy doesn't hold on to, and coming in to clean up was Cedric Bakambu, and this goal would count and would be 1-0 to the Leopards, and we were looking at our first sort of real shock of the Cup of Nations. And for the first time in a long time, Senegal looked very, very challenged in this match. I'm not saying challenged in terms of incompetent, but challenged in terms of the other team really gave them a game and really tested them, and this would be a real test for Pape Thiaw's men. It would be a test they would definitely pass, maybe not with flying colors, but I mean they got a pass mark, as they would react very well to an equalizer. Ibrahim Mbaye was thrown in, Amara Diouf as well, and the young PSG midfielder would be the catalyst for Senegal's equalizer. Unfortunately though, he would benefit from what looks like an injury to Arthur Masuaku. I mean, Masuaku was tasked with stopping Mbaye in this run, and he almost pulls up. I don't know if it's, I pray it's not a serious injury, but he seems to pull up with his calf, or it's not his Achilles, but it's definitely his calf, sort of pulls up. He then collapses onto the floor, and at the time as he collapsed onto the floor, he almost plays Mbaye in, and then Senegal now all of a sudden have the numerical, not saying the numerical advantage, but definitely now with Mbaye running in, DRC look a little bit short in defense. The ball is played in, the goalkeeper and Passy is in no man's land, and it's led up to Sadio Mane, and there's only ever going to be one outcome. Goal number 51 for his country, for the face of the Senegalese side, and it would be his goal that would get the Teranga Lions out of jail to equalize. The match then also has a few moments of its own as well, a lot of good chances between both sides, but none of them were able to find the breakthrough, which would mean this game ends in a draw, and it's a draw that both teams would definitely benefit from. I mean, Senegal are still top of the group, albeit on goal difference, but for DRC, a draw against the top team in the group still sees them with a very good chance of even winning this group. And knowing that they have Botswana on the final day, they'll definitely, and already eliminated Botswana, they'll definitely back themselves to steal top spot from Senegal. So here's how the group lines up. We have Senegal top with 4 points, DRC are second with 4 points as well on goal difference. Benin are a point behind, while Botswana are bottom, and as I'd stated earlier, Botswana are the tournament's first victims, and after the final match they will be on the first flight home. Today at the Cup of Nations, we would see the tournament's one and only East African derby, as Uganda would take on Tanzania. Both teams were beaten on opening day by the two giants of the group, so this match had a lot on the line, considering that, again, victory would see them still alive in the competition. Defeat would definitely almost see them out. It was a match that was very, very even. I mean, both teams really struggled to create opportunities. Both teams really struggled to really impose themselves in the game, and it really had the taste of derby football. It was real typical derby football, blood and thunder. At times the game would be bogged down in the midfield, and not a lot of teams would show a lot of impetus. And it was a game that really would have came down to a moment, especially from the first half all the way to the second half. It was a game that was going to hinge on moments, and the first big moment in the game would fall for Tanzania as a attack that the Taifa Stars had. It was a shot which sort of deflects, but then it deflects into Onyango, who's in goal. But the referee would see that the deflection came from a hand, and thus a penalty. Penalty for the Taifa Stars. A huge moment in the context of the match. I felt like the match wasn't necessarily bad, but the match definitely needed something, and this was definitely that something, a penalty. Stepping up then for the penalty would be very well put away, and the Taifa Stars would have the lead. And in fact, it actually keeps up a very impressive record that they have, that Tanzania have scored in every single match they've ever played at the Africa Cup of Nations, which is a quite impressive record. That's a very impressive record to have, especially for a small team like Tanzania, who don't really have much of a history of success in this competition. I mean, that's a great record to have. So now all the impetus would be on Uganda. Uganda would be really responsible for creating the chances. They'd be really the ones who would have to take the game to the Taifa Stars. And the Cranes did just that, and they would be given the chance to equalize, and they did. Through Uche, the ball played into the area. It's not dealt with very well by the Tanzanians, and Uche would slot the ball into the back of the net for a crucial 1-1. This was a huge goal, not just in the context of the game, but considering there's like 12 minutes to play, but also in the context of the group. It kept Uganda alive. But again, they needed all 3 points rather than one, and they would have a massive opportunity to win the game, as they were given a penalty due to a foul in the box. They would be given a penalty in the last minute of the game, and up steps Okome, who has a massive opportunity. This is a huge opportunity. Not only is this, if he scores this penalty, he will give 3 points to Tanzania and keep them alive, but it'll be a last minute winner against one of if not their biggest rivals. He steps up, sends the goalie the wrong way, but also sends the ball over. He misses, and there went Uganda's big chance. The game then peters out and ends in a 1-1 draw, and again it's a result that really favours none of the two sides. I mean, again, they'll have to wait for the match in Fez, but this is the result that really doesn't benefit any of the two sides. A really frustrating result, especially for Uganda, who really had the chance to sew this game up. But again, it's a point either way. It's a point more than what they had, but they'll know heading to the final day they're gonna have to pull off something miraculous if they want to stay in this Cup of Nations. The last game of the day would probably be the biggest game of the day that took place in Fez, as we saw the derby of Eagles, the Super Eagles of Nigeria versus the Eagles of Carthage of Tunisia, and it was Jekyll and Hyde. If I could describe Nigeria now, it's Jekyll and Hyde. You know, we saw the Jekyll and Hyde of the Super Eagles, and they really were the better side for a large chunk of the first half. They created a lot of opportunities. I mean, Osimhen has the first real shot in anger of the game, which he misses in the 9th minute. A striker of his caliber has to put away, and he created a lot more opportunities and even had the ball on the back of the net, but again would be ruled out for offside. He had 3 or 4 good opportunities that he just doesn't put away, but eventually he'd put one away just before the break. Ademola Lookman having the ball in the right side, he floats a wonderful cross in. Osimhen getting wonderfully into position, as any good striker does, heads it beyond the goalkeeper for 1-0, and Victor Osimhen, after 3-4 tournaments of trying, finally has a goal at the Africa Cup of Nations. It's quite incredible how a striker of his caliber has never scored at the Cup of Nations. He has now, and he gets a little bit too excited to say that he gets a yellow card from the referee. I'd have to judge as something he said to the linesman in the midst of those celebrations, but at the same time, though, I don't really blame him. He's been incredibly frustrated, and he's been incredibly frustrated throughout the last few tournaments, but he's finally got his goal and finally got his moment. That also exposed a very soft spot that Tunisia had. These guys can't mark balls into the area, and again, that's where Nigeria would catch them out in the second half. A corner, the Super Eagles get a corner, be floated into the area, and Wilfred Ndidi would head for 2-0, and Ndidi doesn't look marked. It's not great aerial marking from Tunisia. It looks like they employ zonal marking, which isn't really the best because it means you're marking space rather than marking people. And indeed, he finds himself in the right place at the right time, attacks the ball, heads it in for 2-0, and it's a crucial lead for the Super Eagles now. And also a very poignant goal for Wilfred Ndidi, who has now recently been installed as a new Super Eagles captain after the retirement of longtime captain Trustek Kong. 72 caps he's had for Nigeria. He now scores his first goal, and what a time to get it. And now Nigeria really were in control. And Nigeria seemed to be running away with it with a third goal in a few minutes' time. A wonderfully well-worked move. Finally, Nigeria playing it on the ground. It's a wonderful move that carves Tunisia open, and it finds Ademola Lookman, who had been assisting in both goals. He finally get one of his own. Played into the area by Osimhen. It finds Lookman. At first looks like he's overcooked it, or he sort of overcomplicated it, not taking the shot immediately. He eventually takes the shots with 3-4 Tunisians and the goalkeeper on the line, but he finds the spot in the post. The ball trickles over the line, and it's 3-0 Nigeria, and it really looked like the Super Eagles were running away with it. This was Dr. Jekyll at his absolute finest. Nigeria really were spreading their wings and looked like they were comfortably flying into the last 16. Until Dr. Jekyll turned into Mr. Hyde, and yet again Nigeria show their incompetence at the back. Tunisia would get a goal, would first look like a consolation goal. Hannibal Mejri playing the ball into the area, and a header would make it 3-1. But if you look at, but also has a bit of a problem with Stanley Wabali, the goalkeeper, where he sort of gets caught under the turf and doesn't really make an effort, and eventually the ball goes into the net, and it's 3-1. Now we're thinking there's a consolation goal until a couple minutes later, where Tunisia are given a penalty. And with all the penalty controversy we had yesterday at the Cup of Nations, I mean, oh wow. Yet again, another dodgy call. I mean, if you look at the Nigerian defender, yes, he has to jump with his hands up, but when I looked at it, I thought that maybe the Tunisian player had headed the ball into him, or at least it's one halves and another, where the player finds his arm at the wrong place at the wrong time, and it almost seems it seems like one of those balls where if it hits a player's any part of the body of the player before it hits the hand, it shouldn't be judged as a penalty. But unfortunately, the referee gave it. It's a soft call. It's a very 50-50, but it's a soft call that goes Tunisia's way, and really doesn't help some of the conspiracy theorists and tin hat enthusiasts of this tournament so far about certain narratives that have been written. The penalty will be put away, and Nigeria, who were coasting for the first 25 minutes of the second half, now essentially had to bunker down and not have the inignity of throwing away a 3-0 lead, which they almost did. Tunisia had a fantastic opportunity near the end for Gianni Sassi with the header, which goes just wide. If it goes in, Tunisia rescue a point from the absolute depths, but it doesn't. It goes wide, and Tunisia's chance goes by. Full-time whistle blows, and Nigeria go through not only to the last 16, but go through as group winners, winning an absolute banging game against Tunisia. But like I said, it was Jekyll and Hyde. We saw the good and bad of Nigeria. The good, these guys are good in attack. They are pretty innovative. They can score goals from open play, score from set play. Osimhen looks real hungry. Big Vic always looking hungry. Lookman looks like he can. Lookman has silently been the man of the tournament so far. But the Hyde is the defense, and at times they get real panicky when the situation gets really, really touch and go. So I feel that's something Eric Sekou has to look at in the competition, because they're gonna get into games like these. There's gonna be moments where it's gonna be like that, and if Nigeria don't have their wits about them, it's gonna be really, really dark for them as the competition goes on. But they won't worry about that right now. They are through. As you look at the group right now, Nigeria lead with 6 points. They are confirmed group winners. Tunisia have 3, while Uganda and Tanzania are both at the bottom with 1. Heading into the final game, Nigeria will face Uganda, while Tanzania take on Tunisia. That's today's action in the books. tomorrow's action sees the conclusion of games of match day 2 of the Cup of Nations as we conclude games in groups E and F. We then have Gabon, who were beaten on opening day. They take on Mozambique, both of whom lost on opening day. And then the big one of the day sees Ivory Coast play Cameroon, both winners on opening day. And as I said, similar situation, winner of that match will almost certainly go through to the last 16. And in Group E, Algeria, who were winners of course, take on the other winners, Burkina Faso, while in another win or die situation, we have Equatorial Guinea versus Sudan. Both of those two will be playing for survival, and those will be the 4 games in the Cup of Nations tomorrow. And that's it. That is the end of this episode of Total AFCON Daily. Please sound off in the comments as to how did your team perform. Nigerians, how are you feeling about your team? You're through the last 16. Not in the most convincing way possible. To anyone else, of course, what are the chances your team has, and what are your expectations for tomorrow's games as well? Of course, if you're liking it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you again for some of the support, and I hope to catch you guys again. Until then, it's been your boy, the Football Otaku, and never forget, real football always wins. Check it on the flip side. Deuces. Bye-bye.